I'm Henry. I'm from the London team in the British Red Cross, and as Emily said, I'll be talking about SWEP, or Severe Weather Emergency Protocol, and also a little bit of time as well on power outages. So let me just get this full screen. So what is SWEP, or Severe Weather Emergency Protocol? It's a process to minimize harm or death to anyone who is unhoused during periods of severe weather through the provision of emergency accommodation. It's activated when the temperature drops below 0 degrees overnight, and each borough in London is responsible for their own arrangements under SWEP, but the Greater London Authority, or GLA, does provide pan-London coordination. So in the past, the voluntary and community sector, or VCS, has been involved in supporting with some of these emergency centres when SWEP's been activated. We've supported in a number of different boroughs, and we've had involvement from lots of different organisations in doing that. As a result, we now have a joint SWEP offer to provide voluntary support to councils when they are struggling with capacity to open up these centres. In terms of what you can do or what you should do, now that you've heard about SWEP, just please kind of spread awareness of it, share how it helps to protect Londoners when the weather is cold. There is also, just a quick note, there's a hot SWEP too now, so this does apply to summer when the temperature is particularly high for a prolonged period of time. If you are involved in a community space, do you know if it can be used as an emergency centre? Do you have connections with the local authority? We might be able to help you with that if you don't have those connections yet, or perhaps Emily and LSEP can as well. And also just remember that there are lots of other year-round shelters and support offices in London for unhoused people. So the Severe Weather Emergency Protocol is very much a one-off winter thing, but there are organisations doing amazing work all year round to support people who are unhoused. So that's SWEP, and then again, very quickly, I'll just go through this power outages deck. So this is something that we're thinking about within the Red Cross in terms of risks this winter. We talk about something called concurrency of risk. So that just means when you have multiple things happening at once, it makes it harder for you to deal with that the emergency that's going on. So you might have particularly cold weather, you might have a severe weather emergency protocol activated, and then at the same time, maybe you get a power outage. And obviously that makes everything you're doing under SWEP then harder to deal with. You might well be aware that localized power outages happen across the UK quite regularly. This is an image just taken yesterday from the National Grid website, showing all of those dots are where there was a power outage yesterday. So it does happen a lot, but what's a little bit more unusual is wider power outages covering a larger area. And these can be caused by things related to winter, so it can be caused by storms. Can also be planned, and that would be in that case it'd be called a rolling blackout. So that's unlikely, but again, very unlikely, but in extreme circumstances it can happen. There was some conversation last year around the particularly high gas prices caused by international conflicts and a lack of supply in the UK that might have led to rolling blackouts. So what does the voluntary sector do? Distributed network operators do have the ultimate responsibility to restore power and look after their customers. Just a quick note that DNOs are different to whoever you pay for your energy. So personally, I pay Octopus for my energy, but I know that my distributed network operator is actually UK Power Networks. So you can check online who your DNO is. But they're the ones that are in charge of the actual network and bringing the electricity to your home. The British Red Cross does hold agreements with some DNOs to provide capacity to support with specific actions, such as welfare checking on people's homes or by telephone remotely. And also there's a chance that emergency centres or warm spaces could be set up in a power outage, and the voluntary sector could be asked to support at those. So what should you do? Before an outage, you can be prepared. So at home, you can consider what your personal plan would be and some of the practicalities around how you would deal with a power outage. So lighting, whether you've got physical cash available, because if you need to pay for anything, then just bear in mind that card payments may not work. and some supplies that you might want to keep as well. And then at work or where you volunteer, you can think about or encourage your colleagues to think about whether that space can still be operated and opened up, how you might get there, what some of the risks might be to opening up your space. Another thing I'd really sort of highlight is something called the Priority Services Register. So this applies to all utilities, not just electricity, also water and gas as well. But you can sign up to the Priority Services Register. I've got some links which I'll put in the chat after I finish talking. And anybody that you know who is vulnerable, this is a really good and important thing to get them to do, because it means that that utility provider is aware of their needs and knows that they would be vulnerable in the case of an outage. And then during an outage, just some quick things to remember. So if you're in a power outage, switch off anything that shouldn't be left unattended, such as an electric hob. Leave on at least one light so that you know when the power returns. Contact your DNO to find out more about what's happening by calling 105, or you'd also be able to check online as well, assuming you still have that capability. And check on your local neighbours and anyone vulnerable that you may know. And that's it from me.